Hello and welcome to Whisky.com, where fine spirits meet. Today I have someone next to my cask, and you are Gregg Glass, 20 years of experience within the whiskey industry, 3 years at Whyte and Mackay now. You are master blender for Jura and Whyte and Mackay, and whiskey maker. So I see there are a lot of bottles here on the cask. So tell us about something about yourself and tell us what we're going to do today.
Yeah, sure. Again, I've been in the industry for about 20 years and I've worked in various aspects of the industry, and in terms of whiskey making, about 15 years of that. And really, first of all, what is a whiskey maker? You know, is a question I get asked a lot. And really for me, a whiskey maker is really someone who's bringing together different flavour experiences. So for me, there's a lot of science behind whiskey making, but it's also the artistry, and it's about bringing beautiful flavours and new experiences to people. So we're sort of experience makers and flavour creators as well as anything else.
And I can hear you're a true Scotsman?
Yes, yeah. So I grew up in a place called the Black Isle, just northeast of Inverness. But part of my job is to travel around all of our distilleries,
Cool.
of which Jura is my favourite. I often go there and quite often can't get back because of the weather.
Oh yeah, I've been to Jura. Yeah, you can be stuck there.
Yeah.
But the boat from Isla to Jura is pretty stable, but the ferries are a bit. There's the ones
hit
that
and miss.
hit and miss.
But to be honest, on the island we sort of we take that in our stride. You know, it's nature telling us what we should do.
Another day on Isla.
Absolutely. But yeah, so I thought you might be a little bit thirsty, so I thought I'd bring across some different examples here of Sevenwood in particular, to give you an idea about how we go about making and creating a whiskey in particular, but also probably a good element to start off with is the new make, the spirit that we create on the island as well.
So if you'd like to know how the spirit is created, I've done a distillery video about the Jura distillery, shown all the mashing, malting, fermenting, distilling process. So if you'd like that, have a look on the channel. You will find a video there about the Jura distillery. And this is the product that comes off the still, the new make.
Yeah, absolutely. So at the distillery, the majority of the new make spirit is unpeated. And what you should get is a lovely sort of fresh, citrusy, slightly sweet sort of style of spirit. And that's what we make for the majority of the time of the year. And then usually somewhere around 3 weeks of the year, we'll do a peated expression. So our Jura range, we have predominantly fresh fruity characters to start off with, but there's a very small element of clean sweet smoke in the background, which is adding a little bit of depth, complexity to each of the whiskies. But the main focus is on that freshness, that natural beauty of the spirit itself.
Fresh and nice. Is that directly off the stills, or is that barreling strength?
No, that's straight off the stills.
So that's like 75 or
just below that, around about 72, 73. We typically fill at 63.5%, which is the industry standard. But we also do a lot of experimentation with different fill strengths as well, and the different properties that you can take during the maturation timing as well. So we do a lot of trialing and experimentation for that. But I don't know, what do you pick up?
It was beautifully nice, fresh fruits, round. Now I've added a lot of water, and it's getting definitely into the fresh pears. Bit more ripe than I usually have them. There are a lot of new makes with pear, but
that's water, by the way.
You're not just going straight from the still. I love it. It's fresh, beautifully, just as you want to have your new make. But I think I still need one. Don't want to burn myself for the upcoming nice expressions.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So that lovely fresh fruity characteristic that pairs really well with American white oak. So American white oak, and in particular first fill ex-bourbon, is really the natural house style that we're looking for, but it's the natural partner to...
Pretty round for a double distilled one. It's pretty... Yeah, I like it.
And through the years, so the distillery was established in 1810, but the distillery itself was actually rebuilt in the late 50s, early 1960s, and purposefully when William Delmy Evans had recreated the distillery, partly to maintain employment on the island, was he was looking at what market to look for that spirit. And its close neighbour is Islay, obviously, but what we wanted to do is have a unique spirit style that really speaks to us as a unique island and a unique whiskey producer. It's
interesting. So it smells like I don't know, 20, 25, 30 ppm.
Well, for that it varies.
It varies. Yeah, but what comes out really heavily here is it's a malty one. You do have a lot of smoke. Smoke is the dominant character here, but it comes out a good amount of maltiness. You really do realize that's a single malt.
And even for that small amount of peated spirit that we make, there's still that natural beauty that's there, that freshness, that
there
underlying
is a bit of
fruitiness.
There is a fruitiness as well. It's beautiful that one has that even has a bit of a complexity in it, where you have the fruitiness. There's a good amount of maltiness in there. There's a good amount of smoke in there. I love it.
Yeah,
I love your smoking you make. That's really cool.
Yeah. And what we do is, as a final recipe, so our Juras, what we do is we bring together mainly that unpeated element, and then there's a very small amount of that that smoky character that we're adding. So it's more about harmony and balance.
Yeah, you don't know that from a Jura. It's really smoky. It's smoky. What was the superstition was a bit smoky, and what was the prophecy?
Well.
Prophecy and superstition. Well, that's even a bit more smoky than that one.
Yeah.
From what I can remember the tastes.
Yeah. No,
okay.
Absolutely. So from there, the next whiskey that we can try is Jura. This is a single cask sample that's come out of 100% American white oak, ex-bourbon. So 7 wood. The name 7 wood comes from the 7 different oak sourcings that we're taking it from. So one of them is American white oak, and then we're using 6 different French oaks in partnership with that to add depth, complexity. But the American white oak is also a key component, and what we're looking for is the classical vanilla, toffee, caramel, coconut notes coming through. A lot of whiskey lactose.
It's still a fresh one. With the coconut, it comes out as a fresh one. You do have vanilla, you do have a bit of caramel. Also, I would say a bit of I'm not sure what it is. In doubt, always say citrus carrot. But you'd have to have more time to pinpoint exactly. But there's how many years do you say is it?
So this particular one is 10 years in 100% American white oak, and that makes up the heart of what we're looking to then do finishing with. So this is a good example of how we start the life of the French oak. Typically what happens is
So is that 57 or what are we looking
at? That one is down to 56. Yeah, just over 56, that one. So for 7 wood, the whiskey starts its life as new make and starts in American white oak. And that gives it a good start in life, if you like. And then the French oak element that we're finishing in then is for a period of typically around 2 years, but sometimes we can go up to 7, 8 year finishing cycles for that. But to start off with, it's American white oak, and then it goes into 6 different French oaks to give it different character, and that's a mix of virgin, new oak, but also second use.
It's quite intense.
Yeah,
I would have thought it about a bit more lighter, but there's a lot of the flavors from the bourbon cask. So is it first fill or?
First of all, ex-bourbon
Must
is
be a first fill.
the main component that we do for our Jura. And again, the house style, when you mentioned the new make spirit, you talked about fruitiness, and there's certainly a lot of citrusy notes that are there, which is a good linkage flavour-wise with American white oak.
You do have a bit of character you do have a bit of an association in there, but there's a lot of character from the oak.
Yeah, and so from there, so that's one of the components, American white oak. And then what I'll do is I'll show you maybe 3 different key French oaks that we use. So it's 6 altogether, and American white oak making 7 wood. So what we'll do is we'll try Vosges. So Vosges area of France is synonymous, is famous for creating some of the best quality wine grade oak. But what we've done here is we've sourced specifically from the Vosges area.
Oh, we can cut in the map here for the people to check out where Vosges is. So this is the map from, we have the map here from France, and it's the northeastern part, right?
Yeah. Now, typically in this area, you'll get sessile oak or Quercus petraea, generally speaking.
Quercus petraea.
Yeah. Or sessile oak is how most people would refer to it. So typically European oak, you have 2 main types. You've got Quercus petraea and also Quercus robur. 2 different types.
Robur, okay. And the robur I do know, but the petraea is new for me, I have to say.
So that actually makes up the majority of the French oak that we're using for 7 wood is sessile oak or petraea, and then there's a small amount of robur, which comes from the Limousin region.
Are they all 57? Or?
These ones are actually down to about 54%.
Okay.
So these particular components that we're looking at were around 10 years in American white oak, similar to what we started with, and then these particular examples were around 7 years in these virgin French oaks. And for us as whiskey makers, the looking at the provenance, knowing the background is important, but really it's about the flavour impact.
It's what, I love it. There's a lot of chocolate, spiciness, a little bit of coffee in there, but it's still, you do still get a lot of the coconut as well.
Yeah,
I love it. It's like do you know one of these? What's these chocolates called? Forgot that it's a chocolate with coconut in it, and I forgot the name. No, but it's like, it's lovely. It's I
mean, for me, Vosges, there's a particular characteristic for me, which is like a milk chocolate note to it, and there's the other layers of the coffee that comes through, slight spiciness. But it's beautiful and elegant, so you can see that the French oak is making a huge difference to the flavour profile.
I really love that. Yeah. That is, what is it called? Vogue.
Vosges.
Vosges.
Yeah.
French.
Now the other key French oak that we're using is from Bertrange area, and that's in the central part of France, and this one is key to giving us lovely tropical fresh characters, particularly mango characteristics that we get from Bertrange in particular. So this one here, so again we're looking at about 50%.
What I was a bit confused about is when you hear French oak, you do have the spiciness, these cool flavors, but usually I didn't get that much bitterness when I had that one.
So what you find particularly with new European oak, I sometimes don't like to talk about European oak because it's like, what is a European? What is the character that they have? Everyone is so different and unique. But typically what you'll find is you get your tannin properties that come out quite early on when you're finishing or maturing from new make, and you really need to give it plenty of time for that those strong tannin notes to develop more silky mouthfeel. So when, for 7-wood in the development, this has been well over 10 years of actually refinement in terms of the recipe itself, but also monitoring these French oaks and seeing when is the best time to take these with the variables.
So is that all virgin oak casks?
For the final recipe, we're using a mix. So there'll be a proportion that will have virgin or new wood in there, but there'll also be second use, so it's only had Jura in it before. Now that allows us more tools in our blending kit, if you like, to be able to balance out the recipe, because it's not all about just one-dimensional oakiness, it's about balance and harmony.
This is this is really fruity, but you sure that's 53?
Yeah.
Or maybe you just filled the glass in with a bit more.
Yeah.
I didn't get. No, it's. I like it, but that even reminds me a bit. That goes into the direction of let's say a long-aged first fill or second fill American oak, because it's just a very fruity one.
One of the key characters that I get in 7-wood is a lovely peach note, and this is one of the French oaks that we
it's tropical. Depending on it's again the American oak and then the other ones, because you think about, is that coconut now coming from the what was it, the Bertrange,
yeah,
or is that coming from the new one, the mango and the peaches are definitely new.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
yeah, mango, peaches, apricot, yeah, they all. It's a bunch of a fruitcake that is really a fresh one.
Yeah. So those are the two I would say are the key components in the French oak that we're using, Vosges and Bertrange.
Oh, that's lovely.
But I think next one we should go to is from Limousin, just to give you an idea of the contrast, the differences, because here we're also looking at different type of oak. So we're looking at Quercus robur versus the sessile oak that we've done for the rest of those. So let me see if I can find this one. Here we go. So Limousin oak is famous for use in the cognac industry, and what you find is that it's got a more weighty character to it. There's more allegitannins that are within the oak itself, so you get a sort of stronger. Sorry, I started with me. Let's go here. There we are. Fantastic.
Limousin oak. Yeah, you do know the Limousin oak. It's quite famous. I think it's because of the cognac.
Yeah. So also
much deeper and much darker.
You can actually see that I've got a couple of examples of these are from Vosges and Limousin, and we can actually see there on the left hand side is our Vosges oak, and you can see that the grains are quite tight, so it's slow grown. And on the right hand side there, this is a piece from the Limousin cask, and you can see that we're sourcing wider grained oak within there. Now, different.
When you say wider grain, that's the rings further apart, so it's a faster growing one.
Correct. Yeah, typically faster growing.
So is that because of the surrounding the terrain, or is that because of water, or how do you?
There's a lot of debate about all of these things, but typically what you'll find is your Quercus robur likes richer soils and often more moist soils, whereas your sessile oak can actually grow in maybe what would be classed as more harsh conditions. But there are always parcels of trees that are in different areas. Also, people talk about hybridization a lot.
But then Limousin would be a bit cheaper than the Vosges.
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily.
Not
I thought
necessarily.
always like the growth of the tree, the speed of the growth is proportional to the price.
There is some truth to that. So when you get to French oak versus American oak, for example, so American oak has a higher what we call tylosis level, which is essentially like the glue that holds everything together in the wood. Now your yield that you will get from American oak will be about double the yield than you'll get from French oak. So this is another thing with seven wood has been great for me when I'm out speaking to whiskey enthusiasts and people who are nature lovers even, is about the difference that you get with the sourcing of oak and the different milling techniques that you're using. And typically it's around 200-year-old trees that we're sourcing, but we're responsibly sourcing that. So we work with teams on the ground, the ONF, essentially like the forestry organisation there, so that we're taking from responsible areas that are provenance known.
Oh, I like it. It's much more spicy. It's a lot less fruity, with a character where you have it's a bit of a, you know, that you have often is that Christmas feeling, and that has the. It's missing the oranges, but the rest with the Christmas feelings. The Christmas is without the oranges.
But you can see this as a blending tool. This is amazing. And of course, as you know,
you need to add the oranges and then you have the Christmas feeling.
Exactly, you have to balance it out. And so key to making seven wood, you know, there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes and in terms of us creating a harmony and balance, as I was saying, but we can use, for example, Limousin in a small amount just to add. I get a lot of toffee apple characteristic to it, but as well as that clovey quality. And clove characteristic or eugenol can often come from a wider grain because the more fibrous material that you've got when you've got that there as well. So that the different touching points that the whiskey has with the wood can make a big difference. And a lot of people ask what proportion is flavour from that? 60, 80%, depends on the individual cask. Sometimes the influence is 10%, sometimes 95%.
Now that you said cloves, it's definitely the cloves, and it's the spiciness. I will even describe a bit of the cinnamon. Maybe that's a bit comes from, also it has the apple, but I would say one of these bit of more red apple, one of the really ripe apples that you with I don't know, a little bit of cinnamon in it. Apple cinnamon, isn't that like a recipe for pancakes or something like?
Absolutely.
Like apple, cinnamon. That reminds me of these except for the sweetness. It's missing the sweetness. The sweetness is very, very, very subtle.
Yeah, we'll get to tasting seven wood in a moment, but for me, it's like almost walking into a patisserie. You get this beautiful smells of like apricot and peach, and then fresh baked bread. That fresh baked bread you get a lot from the gently toasted casks. So I mentioned the trees themselves are about 200 years old, but that's just a starting point. After they're taken from the forest, we then mill them, we cut them, and then we allow the oak to air season for around 2 to 3 years.
2 to 3 years.
So that the purpose of that is you want to dry down to a moisture rate to allow you to make the cask. But more importantly, we talk about in the industry about seasoning the wood. I like to talk about maturing the wood, like maturing
okay.
It's not just about the moisture level, it's also about developing the flavours within the wood itself to bring out different properties.
Yep.
So we then toast it, char it, all these things can allow you to play different tunes to be able to create an interesting whiskey.
Yeah, I've heard from the Americans, the American Standard Barrel production, which is kind of a mass production. They have different standards. You have the 6 month and the 9 month, and they said you're taking out the bitterness from that. Is that also true that with the what was it, Quercus Robo?
Yeah, and again, if you've got a higher tannin level, sometimes, again, there's a lot of variables. You might need to leave it a bit longer for those to develop into more silky, soft characteristics, particularly for the mouthfeel. So very briefly, you can have a look at these ones. Allier, within that, for me, it's mainly the pineapple notes. There's a bit of licorice. For me that comes through with that one. So these other French oak types, these are also in the recipe to add a bit of depth and balance. And the way that seven wood was developed, again, over many, many years, is we started with 2, 3, 4 components, and then we sort of built upon that until we actually ended up having 7 different woods altogether. And one of the other things that we need to manage, because obviously oaks are individual living things, is that we have to ensure that that we monitor every new batch of oak that we get from these areas, and so we also have to tweak a lot of the recipes. So again, there's a lot of work that goes behind creating seven wood.
That one, what was it, Allier?
Yeah.
Is a really strange one. It's the one where you want to say, oh yeah, it's a fruity one. Oh no, wait, it's a spicy one. Oh no, wait, it's a fruity one.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's cool.
And then
but it has a really strange taste to it.
Yeah, I mean, and again, we can use each of these unique wood types to be able just to balance out the recipe. Again, Vosges Bertrange are the key from a flavour point of view, but the Limousin adds balance as well, a little bit more weight. Allier gives a bit more freshness, toffee, tropical fruit as well. And then we have also Tronchet or Tronquet, and that is more akin to your heavier spicing notes and ginger cake qualities that come from that particular one. And then,
This one is intriguing. I always wanted to know that. Because I think when you have the smell, then it's more of what you said with licorice, toffee, more of the settled, damp and deeper notes. When you have the taste, you do have a bit of that as well. But the freshness, the pineapple, the freshness doesn't come for me through the smell, but the taste does have it. Do you know some whiskeys are like day and night from the smell to the flavor, and some of them are like, okay, they're exactly the same.
Yeah.
Is there a secret behind that?
No, and obviously from the point of view of flavour, most of that is you're getting through the perception through nosing, the aroma, but the texture, the mouthfeel is just as important for us as whiskey makers to be able to build interesting flavours within there. So yeah, I mean we do a lot of work, and also on what is the ideal alcohol level for us to bring a whiskey out into the market as well, for that individual flavour experience.
That's one of these question marks for me. That is hard to define as from the flavour profile. If you'd give me that for blind tasting, it would just blank out.
Yeah. For me, I spend a lot of time in forests around the world and selecting trees and working with foresters and stuff. And I find there's a lot of magic, and some things are very difficult to pinpoint. Where does that flavour come from? And you develop a sort of an experience, you build up, that's going to work, and this is the ideal toasting or charring type. And then you get science to back it up. What you've done to create, or sometimes it can go the other way. But I think very much when it's about flavour, you work on the properties of flavour and you work back the way. So Tronchet, this one again, we're getting more cinnamon notes and ginger cake in particular with this one here.
It's strange to say that when you talk about French oak, and then you take out your stamp and you just go bitter, spicy. But when you try them, you realize the Allier, that was totally contrast to what you typically think of a French oak. When you have the Limousin, okay, that's take out the stamp. It's got it has a bit of bitterness and a lot of spiciness in it.
And there's a lot more learning and understanding, particularly in the whiskey industry, that we can be doing revolving around new oaks as well. So with Seven Wood, we actually work and have been working very closely with, for example, the University of Bordeaux, and they are actually helping us looking at fingerprinting some of the properties that come from the different areas, and also differences in growth and conditions where these come from. So again, there's a lot of interesting background into that development side.
Okay, then put it in your water.
Yeah. There's a lovely roundness on the nose for this one, I find. And a little bit of toffee apple as well, akin to what the Limousin was giving.
Oh yeah, that's a Christmas one again.
Yeah.
Yeah, cinnamon. Love it.
Yeah.
Toffee apple.
And then the sixth French oak that we have is from Jupy, again in the central region of France. But here we're now starting to go back to the sort of more aromatic qualities. So I get a little bit more characteristics of things like almonds that come through in this next one.
Yeah, that's a lot. There's a lot of roundness in there. So it's almost like even a bit creamy with the caramel. The apple is wait, there's no apple. I would say it's a bit damper than the other ones, but yeah, if you'd interpret an apple into there, it's a very, very red one. Can't smell the almonds. Okay, yeah, that's still a bit too high strength for me. Oh, but I love it. It's very round. It's very creamy. When you talk about mouthfeel, that is a silky smooth one. That is a silky smooth one. A bit of that caramel, a bit of a sweetness.
Do you start to pick up the almonds on just the aftertaste, sort of quite a light sort of background?
They're not as they're mild. They're not as if you have an Oloroso finish or something like that, or Oloroso. Then it's just nuts in there. And this is much more mild. This is you realize it's coming from an oak flavor.
Yeah, I actually use 7 wood when I have tapas with friends, and it's beautiful because it's quite elegant. It's fresh. It's quite a good sort of sharing style whiskey, but also pairing with certain cured meats, for example. The spicy links sort of really nicely in with some almonds and the like. It's really beautiful.
I love it. It's a strange one. It's not, you can't really, if you have that fruitiness, spiciness scale and you just want to characterize it, this is a bit off the scale. Yeah. This is round and deep and flavored nuts, toffee and caramel. It's a bit off the fruity and spicy scale. It's strange.
Yeah.
I didn't think that there's so much variation within French oak.
Absolutely.
If you go into something and the devil's in the detail, there's always
for sure. So I mean, what we've tasted there, to start off with the American Whyte oak, and again, first of all, ex-bourbon's really the natural partner to the spirit style, and then we've also got the 6 French oaks there, and as you point out, they are radically different, very different. So what would you like to do now? Would you like to have a taste of the 7 wood, or would you like to maybe taste a couple of different toasting and charring?
I think we just show the toasting and charring to see how that is impacting. Otherwise, it's getting a bit too long if we try them all.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So what I've brought here is actually American White Oak, straight up. So how, again, 7 wood starts its life. And then Vosges Oak that we've toasted to different levels.
This is the American Oak.
Yeah.
So this is 10 years in American Oak.
10 years, yeah.
But is it first fill or?
That one is this example is actually a second fill, but typically we'll use first fill.
So this will be first fill. This will be second fill.
Yeah.
There is a slight difference.
Yeah. And also it depends on the individual bourbon producer that we're using as well when we're selecting the casks.
So obviously every cask is different, but this is like the typical one.
Yeah, they'll give you an example there.
Okay.
And then that same whiskey that's been put into a medium toast a heavy toasted Vosges cask, and then I've even done one with a char on it. Now,
So when you say medium toast, is that now fully done virgin oak medium toast, or so this is how much you get out of a medium toast? Okay.
and it varies depending on the cooperage that you use, the sourcing. So when we talk about a medium or medium plus toast, we can be looking at around 220 up to about 250 degrees Celsius. And the time also changes. So when you're balancing out temperature, time, and also method as well. So are you directly firing a natural traditional toast, or are you using, for example, infrared, or are you using gas?
Microwave,
And all these things. There's a lot of different, again, tools and that we can use as whiskey makers.
So is that comparable to American medium toast, or are the British standards and American different?
There are differences. I think we'll see if we've got some more glasses, or will we?
I think we have two glasses for
brilliant.
for the 7 wood, but so, and heavy toast is like the maximum you can get out of the wood.
Now, again, a lot of variables, but yeah, generally speaking, what you find is there's an intensity of flavour as you heat the wood up, and then you get to a point where you're then charring the wood, and dependent on the char level, sometimes what you find is it brings out more flavour, but at a point it may actually bring you less colour and less flavour. So this one I've actually charred quite heavily, just to show you, an extreme of what happens, and it can actually go a lot lighter and even less flavour.
Is there a difference between number 1, number 2 alligator char, or?
Yeah, so generally speaking, there's 4 different levels in America that are used, but people are experimenting a lot more. For example, we with Jura, we have even started looking at toasted American oak versus charred American oak as well, and you can play a lot of different tunes again.
But the charring, you turn the wood into charcoal, as it's charred coal, and the charcoal is actually a filter. So wouldn't that suggest, if you use a charred barrel or cask, that you take out some of the? So if you'd fill the heavy into a recask it into a charred, you would go down with the color?
Yeah. You've actually hit the nail on the head, as we say. You've described it perfectly, which links back to 7 wood, because we start the life of Jura the best possible way, American white oak charred casks. So you've got a beautiful upbringing.
Okay.
You've created lovely, soft, elegant, sweet characters, and then, if you like, the French oak is adding a refinement, balance of all these flavors.
So first you take out with the char, you filter out the unwanted alcoholic flavors, and then you take your flavor profile and add them all to the American oak, and then you blend them all together. Okay. I'm really excited now about how that turned out.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, we'll have a taste of.
So this is the finished product?
Yeah.
You can get it on the market. It should be out there in a lot of countries. Just have a look around. And it's called the 7 wood. And they are all of the ingredients we tried mixed into what you found out to be the perfect recipe there.
Yeah, and it was built up over many, many years of experimentation. So the casks, again, well over 10 years ago, as finishing casks, it was a trial and experiment, and then we.
These are the ones. We have so many glasses on the cask, and so what did he go for drinking strength?
So 42% we found in the development works really well. So there's a vibrancy, a freshness that's there, and then I'll let you describe what it tastes like.
Okay, so just let me recap that. We have 95% of this stuff in here, 5% of this stuff, matured in the 10 years in the American oak, and then your mixture and conglomeration of all the other 6 woods, okay?
So really, if you like to simplify, we've got basically 3 different components. We've got American white oak that's been in American oak all its life. That's one ingredient. The second ingredient is started in American oak and then gets finished for many years in the different French oaks, the 6 different French oaks. And then we also add in a small amount, just a dash of peated mature Jura that's been an American white oak. So that element is peated. Now that is actually, it's a very small amount of the recipe. What we're doing is we're using that peated element almost like a seasoning or salt and pepper when you're cooking a dish. What you don't want to do is taste the salt or the pepper individually. What you want is for that to help to enhance the beauty of the dish, the recipe that you're creating. And that's exactly what we do throughout our range. And Jura is, there is an element of that small, that delicate sweet smoke character in the background, but it's mainly led by, the natural fruitiness and sweetness and citrus notes that come from the distillate that we make.
So what I do smell is that very, very, very faint peat smoke, and with a good amount of creaminess, roundness, and now here comes the kicker. There's a good amount of oak in there. You can't go wrong with that.
Yeah.
No, I have to say, it's a complex one. And what I was wondering is that we are looking at a product that is a mixture of 16, 14, 12-year-old whiskey. Is that kind of like that?
So the age range goes either way because what we're doing, it's a non-age statement whiskey, and that allows us the creative freedom as blenders, especially when we're dealing with very distinct flavors and new woods, for example, is then we balance out the minimum aging. The examples that we've got that I've shown you here started 10 years in American oak and then around 7 years of finishing in the virgin wood. But in reality, we balance out the recipe.
What I love about it is I think what I do pick out, it's a complex one. It's definitely a complex one. If you go in, you realize there's tons of flavor in there and there's all different. What I do pick out a bit is a bit of that almond nuttiness, and what I'd also do. What was the very round one? Was it the Vogue?
Oh, the Vosges.
Vosges was the milk chocolate one that was a really round one. I would say, I do smell that character. There is a faint taste of that mango and that peaches and that kind of stuff. The mouthfeel when you have it in your mouth is awesome. It's just silky smooth, round, and that kind of stuff. So it's really pleasant to have it in your mouth. It really feels nice. Also, when you swallow it, you realize it's a bit of a juicy touch. So it starts the flow of in your mouth, and there is a lot of oaky flavors and a good amount of spiciness in there.
Yeah. Peach. We mentioned peach earlier. Peach juice is what I get.
Yeah, that's what I do have with with the flow. There's a bit of a juicy touch to it. I would have gone with a very, very mild orange juice, maybe mangoes. Depends on how you interpret it. And but there's a good amount of spiciness. What I'm really strangely excited about is you missed out the bitterness pretty much, I would say.
Yeah.
You didn't, even in the ingredients, there were very few ones. I would say the Limousin oak had a bit of it in it. I can't pick it out here.
Yeah.
I would have, if you said you got 6 different types of French oak, and I was like, okay, this is probably a bitter one. But no, this is a lot different. So if you'd say, this is a French oak whiskey, then not a typical one.
I mean, I often talk about it like cooking, you start out with the finest quality ingredients to start off with, and then you work on how you can combine them in interesting ways to create different flavors. So, for example, 7 different woods. Is that too much or too little? If you're cooking a dish and you use 7 different ingredients, that wouldn't be unusual.
Sure.
You know, so it's actually about how you build up the layers of flavor, texture, and all of these things. And sometimes we use single oak types and sometimes multiples to build in those flavors.
I have to say, yeah, well done. It's a really nice whiskey. Thank you for creating it. I love it. It's It's the second sip is a bit more, I would say, robust, a bit more of what I would expect of an oak flavor, a bit more heavy, a bit more, maybe even a bit more smoky. Well, that comes out when you wait a little.
But you can tell that the smoke isn't at the forefront. It's about the other flavors that come through first, and that's one thing with our new range of Jura, as well as they've all got this beauty and elegance to them, and a lot of depth and complexity, partly because of the blending.
Is that like the peppering up with the American oak peaty one, or is that the one in the back? Or is that...
So you've got that just coming through in the aftertaste, just softly building. But to be honest, 7 wood out of our range is probably the one that's got the least of that character. It's mainly led by the beauty of each of these individual French.
It's just enough to just gently pick it out in the aftertaste.
Yeah. But
when you have it in your mouth, there's enough going on that you like, no smoke going on. Let's just focus on all that complexity in your mouth.
Yeah, I mean, for me, both as a whiskey maker but also a whiskey enthusiast, what I really like about Jura, the range, and also 7 wood, is that you can take from it what you come in. So you know, if you've got a really good refined palate, you can then pick out some of these unique flavours, that some of which are not in any other whiskey within Scotch, but at the same time you can appreciate it for its versatility, its freshness, and alike, as well as drilling down into sort of the complexities.
It's one of these. I have one saying for the whiskies that are more of a journey through a whiskey. When you have that roller coaster of a whiskey, where you start off very fresh and then it comes spicy and it goes to. This is one of these mild roller coasters, I would say. You don't have the extreme here, extreme there, and then roller coaster ride. But it's going from one direction into another. It's beautiful. I love it.
Yeah,
it's a nice whiskey.
Cool.
Okay, so this was like you said is a deconstruction tasting. I think we did it the other way around. We constructed
we built it up, which
is
exactly how we came to 7.
I think it took you a bit longer, didn't it?
Yeah, slightly.
Slightly. Okay.
Absolutely. A few grey hairs.
Okay, so do you have anything else to add? Or?
No, not really, but thank you for having me on and being able to sort of share with yourself and also your fans out there in Germany and throughout the world. So it's great to
it was a lovely video. I didn't do such a thorough deconstruction video yet. It's lovely to see where it comes from. So thank you very much out there for watching this video. If you live in Germany, the whiskey is available at whisky.de inside the shop. Have a look at it if that might be one whiskey for you. For all of you other guys out there internationally, have a look around. The whiskey Jura is pretty much internationally available. There might be a liquor store near you that also has this beautiful Jura 7 wood whiskey. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you for being here.
Thanks.
And see you next time.
Slàinte.